Hi Professor Cleo, this is video number 2. So we have the guest appearance of my little friend Jojo that I got when we were setting the bones. Very helpful, by the way. But anyways, I'm going to use for bone number 1, I'm going to use the cranium as 1, even though it's separate bones. And then we can just count it as 1. Move the top. Between the frontal bone and the 2 parietal bones is the coronal suture, and separating the 2 parietal bones is the sagittal suture, and separating the parietal bone to the occipital bone is the lambdoid suture, and then separating the parietal bone to the temporal bone is the squamous suture. So that would be, and I also wanted to point out in the back, near the lower occipital bone is the external protuberance, as another bone marking in the back. Number 2 would be the vertebral, separated into 3 different areas: cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. And 5 bone markings with the cervical C1 atlas is splenius process, transverse process, transverse foramens, which is how the spine runs through to the brain, the body of the vertebral, as well as the pedicle. Yes, and that's all 5 for the vertebral. And then next is the sacrum. The sacrum located here, separating the vertebral and going into the hip bone. You have the sacral promontory. You have the ala off on the side. You also have the auricular surface on the side, transverse ridges going down the middle, transverse foramens of the sacrum are the holes, and you also have on the posterior side the median crust. So that concludes 5 there. Next would be the scapula, which has the acromion, it has the spine, coracoid process, glenoid cavity, the scapular notch, acromion, spine, coracoid process, scapular notch, and glenoid cavity. Yes, that's the 5 of the scapula. Next we have the mandible. And the mandible has the mandibular condyle. It has the mandibular notch. It has the coronoid process of the mandible body. It has the mandible angle as well as the mental foramen. That concludes the mandible, so that should be number 5. Number 6, we'll go to humerus. So we have the head of the humerus, we have the surgical neck of the humerus, we have the greater tubercle, the lesser tubercle, and the intertubercle groove. And then we have the ulna. The ulna located here on the pinky side is the olecranon process. You have the trochlear notch in the middle, and then you have the coronoid process of the ulna, the shaft of the ulna, as well as the stylus process of the ulna on the distal end. And yes, so that concludes my first 5. And for the last 2, I have the tibia, which has the intercondylar eminence. It has the lateral condyle, the medial condyle, tibial tuberosity, and the medial malleolus. And then for the fibia, we have the fibia head, shaft of the fibia, and the lateral malleolus. And I know that that wasn't 5, so I'll just give you 2 more on another bone. The sternum, you have the mandibular, you have the angle, you have the xiphoid process. Trying to see if there's anything else I can give you. Also have the hand, which is the metacarpals, which has 1 through 5 metacarpals, and phalanges. And yes, so that concludes the 10 bones in the body.